Rendering is an important part of any project. If you are new to After Effects, the rendering setting may be a little confusing for you, but don't worry at all. Because in this video, I will tell you all things that you need to know about render your project. Hello everybody, what's up? This is Mehdi from GR Tutorial Studio, and today I want to teach you how to render in After Effects. So if you're ready, let's go! The first step is to set up the work area. Let me press tilde key to display the timeline panel full screen. As you can see, I do not have any keyframes from 6 seconds onwards. So, I go a few frames forward to reach 9 seconds. Now, I set the end of work area by pressing N key. It's good. Now, go to the composition menu and click on Add to Render Queue or use Ctrl M shortcut. Your render queue panel may look a little different from me. I'm using After Effects version 22.1 to record this tutorial. There were good features for rendering in this version, and I also recommend you to use this version. But if you are using older version of After Effects, there is no problem at all, and I will try to tell you the most basic and useful tips about rendering in After Effects. There are three main sections in Render Queue panel: Render Setting, Output Module, and Output 2, all of which I will explain to you. First of all, let's go to the Render Setting. By clicking on the blue text in front of Render Setting, the setting window will open. This window is not complicated. The first thing that you need to set in this window is the Quality section and the Resolution section. Attention, the size here is the composition size. I press Ctrl K to open composition setting window, and I change the composition size and go back to render setting window. You will see that the size changes. Now let me press Ctrl Z and undo the changes. There are settings for frame rate here, and the use comps frame rate option is selected by default. As you can see, my frame rate is set on 30. But if you want, you can adjust the frame rate manually. To do this, select the Use this frame rate option and type the frame rate that you want in the box in front of it. For example, I type 60. You can also use this section to set the work area. If you click on Custom, you can set the start, end, and duration time. You can see the phrase base 60 is written here because I changed the frame rate to 60. If I select Use comps frame rate again, the phrase base 30 will be written. There were the most important basic settings in render settings section. And now it's time for output module. The output module section is the most settings for rendering, and settings such as format, codec, and etc. included this section. In the format menu, you can use any of formats in this menu. You can also see the wave format here. Now I choose it. As you can see, after selecting the wave format, the video output section is automatically disabled because the wave format is for audio file. In the audio output, you can also adjust the setting and features related to audio. Now, I change the format. You can see that the video output section is now activated. If your project has no sound or you don't want to export the sound of your project, you can turn it off or you can set it to auto. I usually choose auto myself. In the video output section, the channels menu is one of the most popular and useful settings. If your project has no background, you need to set channel when rendering it to be rendered transparently. For example, here I'm going to get a transparent rendering of this motion so that I can use it for my YouTube video. You can enable transparency grid mode, but this mode does not work on your rendering. To render the project, you must select RGB Alpha option in channel menu. Now it's time for format option. By clicking on the format option in the new window that opens, you can select the codec that you want. This window has two tabs. One tab is for video and the other one is for audio. In the audio output section, there is a format option, which will open the same window again. In the resize section, you can resize your rendering file. For do this, you can also use preset. And don't forget to set the resize quality to high. In the crop section, you can also crop your rendering file. At the end of the work, you can select the address and name for your output file through the output too. If you notice, here is a plus sign next to the output too. By clicking on this sign, you can get several renderings with different settings. I want to have 3 renders for my project with different settings. So I double click on this plus icon and apply the setting I want in each. Now it's time to click the render button to start rendering for me. Okay, let me get a transparent rendering from the subscribe motion. For now, I pause the rendering to tell you some things. In the info section, you can see information such as start frame, end frame, and etc. And here, you can see the percentage of rendering progress. I will explain about this green line a little further. If you are using older version of After Effects, the appearance of this part may be slightly different for you. Now you can make a cup of coffee for yourself, and don't worry because After Effects does everything. If you want, you can enable notify when queue completes option. If you enable this option, Creative Cloud will send you a notification on your desktop and mobile phone when your rendering is over. By clicking on the icon next to it, it will take you to Preferences panel and Notification tab. Here, you can enable the option to automatically enable notification when you add a composition to render queue. This feature is for new version of After Effects, and it helps you to optimize your time. For example, while your project is being rendered, you can do other jobs and be noticed when your rendering is over. If you click on the snail icon at the bottom of the timeline panel, a new column called Render Time will be displayed in the timeline. You can also enable or disable this from the column menu. The render time column shows the amount of time a layer took to render, and a bar graph of how that compares to other layer on the same frame. While using composition profile, turn off adaptive resolution, so the time displayed are accurate for preview resolution. Layers, effects, masks, and styles rendered in memory in whole or part display the render time value with a star. In this situation, the render time reflects how long it takes to render anything that is now already cached, and the time taken to fetch item from the cache. Any item without a star render without using anything from the cache. Since After Effects frequently caches to profile a frame, select Edit, Purge all memory and this cache to force that frame to be recalculated from scratch. If you want to know more about render time, you can tell me in comments, so I can produce more video for you. Now let me tell you another good point about rendering in After Effects version 2022. If you remember, I told you that I would explain to you about this green line. Now it's time to explain what is this green line. This green line is a multi-frame rendering. If you go to the Preferences menu and Memory and Performance tab, you can see the Enable Multi-Frame Rendering option. Multi-frame rendering accelerates the creative process by taking advantage of the full power of your system CPU's core when previewing and rendering. As you may remember, I got 3 renders of this project with different settings. Now I can see the logs. There is an arrow icon next to each section. If you click on this icon, It will open a section for you that can see the settings of each project you have rendered. For example, you can see here that I set the channel to RGB plus alpha, or here you can see that I crop image from top and bottom, and you can also see the final image size. Finally, I have to tell you that you can also use Adobe Media Encoder software to render your After Effects project. This is the end of this tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed watching it and it will be useful for you. And if you have any question, you can ask me in comments. At the last, don't forget to like this video.